Welcome to Brier's Music Showcase. I'm Bryer and welcome back to another video. And it's that time yet again where I go through all the CDs I acquired throughout the month of October. So as usual, got quite a bit here, but I'm pretty happy. I think there's like really good selection here, and as usual it's a lot, as I just said, because it's October, it's my birth month. Of course, my birthday was on the 1st of the month, and so kind of treat yourself a bit more. The first thing I will quickly acknowledge, I'm not going to go too in depth on it. I already did like 2 videos on this thing already, but of course in the previous video I did unbox the Queen 1 box set. Not going to give my thoughts because probably next week I'll be releasing another video where me and Nick go through the entire contents of the box set and give our thoughts on the remix as a whole. So look out for that pretty soon. But in total, I have something, I already forgot how many are in here. I know it's over 40 albums I'm going to be talking about in this haul. So I will say not as much as previous months. I think the most is like in the 60s or something, but this one's a little bit less, but still it's going to take a bit. So I'm going to try and give my thoughts as brief as I can, but still give you my first impressions on these. So if you enjoy these monthly CD hauls, please give this video a like, subscribe if you are new, and without further ado, let's jump into it. Kicking off the CD haul, we have Aha, and this is their album, East of the Sun, West of the Moon. So this one's a bit of a later album for them, quite a little bit later. This came out in 1990, I believe, if I remember correctly. And I already have one Aha album, of course. Of course, it's the big album with some of the big hits, of course, like with Take On Me and Sun Always Shines on TV. But this is an album I've actually been meaning to try out for quite some time because Aha are a band I want to dive in a little bit more and kind of go beyond the big hits. And the reason why I went with this is because I was actually familiar with one of the tracks, and it's actually the first song, and that's their version of Crying in the Rain by the Everly Brothers. And I've always enjoyed their version of it. It's a bit more moodier, has more of a, I wouldn't say darker sound to it, but has a more melancholy feel, and I think they do a really good job on that track. I think it suits the lead vocalist very well. And so, always like that's their version, so another reason why, that was the big reason why I wanted this album. And after hearing the album as a whole, I was pretty impressed. I really dug the sound of this album. Again, kind of like Crying in the Rain. The whole album has this kind of more moodier sound to it. Kind of a, I wouldn't say depressing, but definitely more melancholy. That's probably another way to describe it. Early Morning, another great follow-up song. I Call Your Name. Let's see what else was there. Waiting for Her. Cold River was pretty good. It's just a very solid kind of, I don't know what you would call this, like, I wouldn't say goth rock, I wouldn't go that far, but definitely just a very nice kind of moodier pop album, shall we say. Just they're kind of transitioning. Of course, we're going from the 80s and we're going to the 90s now. So I think they do a pretty good job in this transition here. I don't have much else to say, but it's a pretty solid album right here. Moving along, we have the band Bop Deluxe, and this is their album Sunburst Finish. So Bop Deluxe, they're a band, every so often, people will talk about them, but they're definitely not a band that everybody knows. But of course, they're like a band from the 70s for the most part. I think they released a couple albums in the 80s, but they didn't really last that long. But yeah, I've always heard about them, and so it kind of piqued my interest. And plus, the name Bop Deluxe, like, what kind of a name is that? But it's kind of interesting. And most people have said this is definitely one of their best albums. And after giving this a listen, yeah, I totally get it. I really dug this album. This is a really good album. It's just a great kind of mid-70s like rock album, but it's got elements of rock, maybe elements of glam rock, and just some other facets that sound really nice. I think they blend certain things very well. And the guitar work on this album, I forgot the guitar player's name. Is it Billy Nelson or something like that? I gotta look at this real quick. But yeah, let me just see just real quick. I think that's him right there. Hopefully you can see him right there. And an interesting album cover too, I should also mention. Yeah, Bill Nelson. Yeah, Bill Nelson's the guitar player and the main lead vocalist. And yeah, his guitar work is stellar and solid voice too, very strong. Yeah, I could go through my favorite songs, but I really enjoyed every song on here. It is really great. Definitely one I would recommend people checking out. Just right up my alley. Just, again, great stuff here. So there we go, Bop Deluxe, Sunburst Finish. Yeah, definitely a hard recommend from me. Moving along to more rock, we have Tommy Bolan with his first album, Teaser. So in the previous CD haul back in September, I actually bought his second solo album, which was Private Eyes. And yeah, I was actually very surprised I was able to find this not long after. I got this at a record store. And yeah, so now I pretty much have all Tommy Bolan's solo albums now, because again, he only released 2 before he died. And yeah, this is just as good as that album. I'd say it's actually pretty close. They're very close. I think just by a hair I prefer this album, but both the albums I've been very impressed with. I mean, his guitar work, again, really top notch, and again, solid voice too. Again, not the greatest voice you'll ever hear in your life, but I think it suits the music he was going for. Just great hard rock numbers, and even still some moments where he changes it up a bit, where it's more, I believe there's one that's slightly more on a jazz fusion field, which is pretty cool. And there's one instrumental track on here, which, great, it sounds good, but again, you know how I feel about instrumental tracks as a whole. But still, I do acknowledge the playing on that track was very good. But besides the instrumental, again, everything else I was very much really digging a lot. Again, stuff like The Grind, Dreamer, let's see what else. People, Marching Powder. Just really, really cool album. So yeah, this is another recommend for me if you're into more. I was about to say obscure, but he's pretty well known to most guitar fans out there. So there's that. So yeah, really another one to check out. Now we have a big guy right here. Of course, we have David Bowie, and this is his album Lodger. This is the third album in his Berlin trilogy, of course, starting with Low, going to Heroes, and now this. And of course, yeah, gotta talk about the album cover. We gotta show the whole cover as well, Actually, I can just do it here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just give you this. This sums it up. I think it's supposed to be him replicating being hit by a car or something. So kind of a creepy cover though. But besides that, so this is often, in terms of the Berlin trilogy, this is often usually ranked, last place of those 3. And after giving this a listen, yeah, it's definitely my least favorite of the 3. I still prefer Heroes and Low over this, but still some good songs on here. I really enjoyed the first song, Fantastic Voyage. I think that was pretty good. I think Move On was also pretty solid. I think Boys Keep Swimming was also one I dug a lot. You have Look Back in Anger. You have Oasis telling you to don't look back in anger, and then here's Bowie telling you no, look back in anger. But yeah, but again, the playing on here is pretty good. There's still some very memorable tracks here, as I said previously. But yeah, just maybe not as memorable or as strong as the last albums. But again, still not a bad album by no stretch. Still has that David Bowie stamp on here, which he's always pushing boundaries, and you definitely still hear that stuff there. I will say this one definitely incorporates more world music here, which I dig to an extent, and maybe that's why I'm not loving it as much as the other 2. But again, that's just me. Again, I'm sure there are people who actually say this is their favorite of the Berlin trilogy, and I do not blame them. I can see the appeal. but for me it's not one of my absolute favorites for him, but still some good stuff. Yeah, there's my thoughts on Lodger. Okay, so now we have Peter Satera with his album Solitude / Solitaire. Okay, so of course, you know, there's, when it comes to, of course, Peter Satera from Chicago originally, the band Chicago, I should specify, and you know, of course, Chicago went through couple phases. You know, they started off in the kind of more jazz rock field, but then eventually when you get to the 80s, they kind of become more of a pop act, more pop rock sort of thing, because they were collaborating with David Foster, songwriter, producer, and Peter Satera was really starting to become the face of the band, and I guess the rest of the band got kind of annoyed by that, and I think Peter starting to get a big head, and so he decided to leave Chicago and decided to go solo, and this is what we got. So this came out in 1986, I believe, and you know, I will be straight up. If you are not a fan of the more commercial, poppy Chicago 80s stuff, you're definitely not going to like this, because Peter decides to go even further into that 80s pop sound. So I would say it was even more 80s than some of that stuff that he was doing in Chicago at that time, in the early 80s. But what do I feel? I'm going to be honest, I'm a sucker for that 80s sound. So I actually really dug this album. I thought it was actually kind of fun. And again, Peter Satera has a fantastic voice. Like he has this very smooth, very unique voice that I actually really like a lot. And yeah, I'll be honest, I really enjoyed pretty much every song on here. There was not a song I did not like, which again might sound sacrilegious. But again, I think it was really good. And you know, Big Mistake, very fun, very upbeat, catchy opening song. They don't make them like they used to. It's pretty good. Of course, this has the big hit Glory of Love, which was in the Karate Kid 2 soundtrack. Of course, I'm a sucker for that song too. I think that's a really nice kind of power ballad. Queen of the Masquerade Ball, another great song. Daddy's Girl, that's another nice song. Really good, catchy melody on that too. And then the rest of the album is pretty solid too. But yeah, again, probably not for everybody, depending on your tastes, but if you like just good old-fashioned 80s pop, this is definitely a good one to check out. I actually kind of recommend this one. And now doing a complete 180, we have The Crazy World of Arthur Brown by The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. Really rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? So of course, it came out in 1968, and wow, this is a very bonkers album, but I really enjoyed this a lot. Of course, Arthur Brown, you know, he's kind of a well-known figure. He kind of has more of a cult following than a mainstream following, but he did have one massive hit, and that, of course, is the song Fire, which is a killer song, just this over-the-top, theatrical, very does not hold back sort of track, where it just literally starts off with,
I am the god of hellfire, and I bring you fire.
Then you just have the rest of the song, which is just this surprisingly creepy yet catchy tune. Just love the horns and the keyboards. Just has this very cool vibe to it, which I dig a lot. And then, as a vocalist, he is very, very cool. Again, he can go low, he can go very high. Just absolutely love his style. I will go more in depth, but kind of a little promotion, I guess. Literally, not long before this, me and my good friend Nick did a review on this album. I'll leave a link to that review in the description if you want to know our more in-depth thoughts on the album. But spoiler alerts, got a lot of good reviews from both of us, so there you go. So Crazy World Arthur Brown, it's weird, it's psychedelic, has some soul in it, but definitely an album you have to hear at least once, even if you don't like this. At least say you did listen to it. So there we go. Throughout the month of October, I have been listening to Pornography, the album from the band The Cure. What do you think I was listening to, sicko? Anyway, so yeah, I got another Cure album. And of course, this is Pornography. That's the name of the album. I know, pretty out there in terms of names. But it is, this is somewhat more in their early period where they're more on the gothic rock field. Of course, later on in the 80s, they would go on to be more of a more commercial sort of sound. So, yeah, I wanted to check out their early stuff for a bit. And after giving this a listen, yeah, I liked it. Yeah, I would say I have to get more used to it because again, I'm so used to the more poppy stuff. But this is definitely not as commercial sounding as what I've heard previously. So this is definitely an album I can see could grow on me more. But as of now, I just like it. Don't love it, I like it. Again, still has some good production. Again, you have Robert Smith, of course, and company on here, which think the music itself is pretty solid. You have 100 Years. Then you have songs like Siamese Twins, A Strange Day, A Short-Term Effect. Still some very cool soundscapes throughout. Definitely has a vibe. So yeah, I don't have much else to add to this one. It's just very solid. But again, like I said, this one could grow on me more the more I give it more listens. But still, give it a thumbs up. And now we have something a little different. We have Daft Punk. That's right, we got Daft Punk, and this is their album called Discography. Which is funny because, of course, Daft Punk are a kind of disco, like post-disco dance sort of sound. And, of course, it's called Discovery because, it has disco in the name. So now if I had a nickel for every time an album was called Discovery, and it has a very, disco feel, then I have 2 nickels now. But anyhow, yeah, again, Daft Punk they're a group I've been curious about because they have a pretty big following, and this is it came out in the 2000s, like early 2000s, and based on this album, hey, not bad. Not my go-to because it is dance oriented, so there's not many lyrics to this album. There's a lot of instrumental tracks, but there's some good hooks here and there. And of course the vocals, they have a very auto-tune, but goes with their aesthetic because of course they're have those helmets on, of course, so I guess it kind of matches the theme they're going for with this music. But besides that, I think there's still some interesting bits to it. But again, as a whole, not really something I go back to, but it was nice to check them out. I definitely am open to listen to more Daft Punk because they do have a nice sound. But what's funny about this CD I got, for some reason, I guess this was a thing back in the day, but it actually came with this. Like, I don't know, I guess a gift card, I think. So you can buy merch maybe. Of course, I'm pretty sure this is long expired by this point, but still interesting it came with this. But other than that, again, not bad, pretty solid. Yeah, and if you're a Daft Punk fan, let me know if there's any other albums I should check out, but yeah, still, thumbs up. Moving along, we have Deep Purple, The Battle Rages On, ... Alright, so this is an interesting period of the band. This came out in the early 90s, very early in the 90s actually. And this was a weird time, because the previous album you had Slaves and Masters, which you had Gillan Turner. Actually, I should back up even further. Of course, you have the reunion of the Mark II lineup with Ian Gillan, Ritchie Blackmore, Roger Glover, Ian Pace, and John Lord. Of course, started with Perfect Strangers, and then you had a couple albums after that. But old tensions started to come up again, and so Ian left, and then Ritchie brought in Gillan Turner, who he'd worked with in Rainbow, and then they were going to record another album with Joe, but I guess they decided to bring Ian back. I mean, the rest of the band wanted to bring Ian back, but Ritchie was still against it. But still, Ian comes back for this one, and I believe not long after this album, Ritchie would ultimately leave the band for good. So this is kind of the last album with the Mark II lineup, basically. And I will say though, not one of my favorites. A lot of the songs were kind of, they're okay. There's some standout moments, but as a whole, kind of, I don't know, something just doesn't really click. It's just, there's heavy spots, but nothing really that memorable. Like, honestly, I can't remember most of the songs on here. I must say, 10 songs feels a bit long, because again, we're going to the 90s, so of course CDs were the big thing. Ian sounds okay too, and again, musically it's okay. It's fine, it's solid, but nothing really grabs me. So it's kind of a shame. The album cover is not bad though. I'll give it that. It has a cool dragon on the cover. But yeah, as of now, not one of my favorite Deep Purple albums as of now. But again, you can let me know your thoughts on any of these albums in the comments below. But that's my thoughts on this album. And now we have Dokken, Back to the Attack. So this is my third Dokken album as of now. Of course, I have Tooth and Nail, and what's the other one called? I have Under Lock and Key. And this is the follow-up to that one I just said. And yeah, I've always dug Dokken. Based on what I've heard, they have a cool, nice heavy sound, good guitar work from George Lynch, and pretty solid vocals from Don Dokken, of course. And yeah, this is another really strong album. Another one I dug a lot. Of course, you have Kiss of Death, great opening song. I've always liked that song. Then you have Prisoner, Night by Night. Then you have some songs that were, you have Mr. Scary and Sleepless Nights. And I can't remember, Dream Warriors too. I think Dream Warriors was on the Nightmare on Elm Street soundtrack. I think it was on one of the sequels, if I remember correctly. I think it was Nightmare on Elm Street, but I know it was one of the sequels. But still, cool song. Yeah, just, again, another one of those albums where every song, pretty much all the songs, basically, are very good. Very strong, 80s, heavy metal, maybe hair metal, but again, I realized that term has some people don't like that term. But anyhow, it's still very cool album. Very much enjoy this one. Another recommend if you're into that 80s metal scene. So I talked about Deep Purple not that long ago, but kind of sticking to that theme actually. We have the Ian Gillan Band, and this album is called, and I hope I say this correctly, Scarabaeus. Yeah, I think it was part of some mythology. Totally blanking on it at the moment. But yeah, we have an Ian Gillan solo project album here. Of course, this is his first solo band after he left Deep Purple. There's actually two bands he formed. You have the Ian Gillan Band first, and then after that you have the Gillan Band. I know, kind of confusing. But the Ian Gillan Band is kind of a fascinating period because after he left Deep Purple, he kind of decided to go on this jazz fusion progressive rock sound, which very different than what he did with Deep Purple. I mean, Deep Purple had some proggy moments, but nothing like full-blown progressive rock. I guess Child in Time's the closest to it, but yeah, so this is a very interesting album. I'm not quite sure what to make of it still. I like it, but I don't know if this is something I always want to hear Ian Gillan do, because again, I like his more hard rock sound. But I think he does do a solid job with this sound. There are some pretty cool moments, some good musicianship all around. Has a cool vibe to it too. And yeah, but overall, it's weird to describe. I don't know what to make of it still. I definitely still want to get stuff from his Gillan Band era, but based on this is pretty good. This is pretty solid. Yeah, I'm trying to look at the songs. The title track was pretty cool. Empathy, Madeline, or Lane, I should say. Mercury High. Yeah, pretty good. Don't love it, but I like it. Yeah, There we go, Ian Gillan Band, Scarabus. And now we have a more obscure band. The band is called Glass Harp, and this is called It Makes Me Glad. I think this is their third and maybe final album they did originally. I think they were reformed years later, but in terms of their initial run, this is their final album. So Glass Harp, again, very obscure band. This is definitely a band not many people are gonna know, unless you're in the know. They're kind of this, I'd say, not really hard rock, kind of folk rock, maybe a bit of, has some rock moments, maybe folk rock too. I think I already said folk rock, but 3 times actually now. It's morning, if you couldn't tell. Kind of just has some more standard rock. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, pretty good. Again, nothing I wouldn't rave about, but pretty solid. Seesaw is pretty nice. Sailing on a river. Cult. Not like cults as in like religious cults, but cults, C-O-L-T. You have a song called David and Goliath. I'm Going Home. It has a pretty nice feel. Definitely dug the vibe of this one. Kind of a nice laid back, very chill sort of sound. And some good vocalists too. Very, very nice sounding. Again, not a whole lot to say, but definitely nice checking out some more obscure stuff every once in a while. I think I heard about this band through Sea of Tranquility. I think he made a video on this band. But yeah, definitely caught my interest. But glad to give them a chance. I know they have a couple other albums, so again, if you know Glass Harp, again, let me know if they're worth checking out more. So there we go. Here is another one of these 5-in-1 packs, and here, as you can see, is Hall & Oates. Yeah, so decided to check out more Hall & Oates after having that one greatest hits compilation for years now. So now we're starting to tap into their actual albums here. So of course, it comes with 5. So has their self-titled album, which of course has this very glammy look to them. Definitely something they don't really delve into very much. I read an interview from Daryl Hall that says, like, damn, like if he didn't know this was him, he would want to date this chick. Anyhow, we also have Bigger Than Both of Us. Okay, we also have Beauty on a Back Street. There's that. Then we have Private Eyes. And then we have H2O. So we'll talk briefly on each one. So the first one, we have, of course, their self-titled album. Very solid, very good, very good. Of course, has a lot of soul to it, has some pop moments. Of course, it's known for having the big hit Sarah Smile, which is a terrific song. But yeah, as a whole, has a pretty nice feel. I do like their vocals. Of course, Daryl Hall goes without saying, but I do dig some John Oates. I think John has a pretty solid voice too. Yeah, so yeah, pretty good album. And then after that, we have Bigger Than Both of Us. Definitely a little bit stronger, I must say. A lot more memorable songs. Of course, you have Back Together Again. Crazy Eyes was pretty good. You'll Never Learn. Of course, this has another big hit, Rich Girl, which is another standout song. Really dig that a lot. So yeah, pretty good album as well. Then you have Beauty on the Back Street, which is, I will say, is probably my least favorite of these albums. Probably the one that didn't really grab me that much. A lot of the songs weren't as memorable, and I don't think there was any major big songs on here. If I'm not mistaken, I'm just looking through the track listing and nothing's coming to mind at the moment. I could be wrong, but yeah, this one didn't really do much for me. But then we have this album, and this is by far my favorite of the 5 here. It has a lot of great pop songs, very catchy stuff, and even some of the deep cuts as well. Like, that's probably the big thing why I wanted to check out more Hall & Oates. I wanted to see if their deep cuts were any good. And for the most part, there's definitely some standout deep cuts, but for me, the deep cuts on here are really really great. Of course, you have the big hits like Private Eyes and I Can't Go For That, both great songs, but some deep cuts that really stood out. Songs like Looking For a Good Sign, Mano a Mano. That's a John Oates song, and wow, a very great catchy song. Then you have Head Above Water, this great upbeat, pretty anthemic sounding song, very nice as well. Friday Let Me Down, another good song. Your Imagination. Yeah, this is a great pop album. So far, of all the Hall & Oates albums I've heard so far, this is definitely one I recommend the most. Very good stuff here. And also this album's pretty good too. Of course, you have H2O. I have to look on this for the tracks. Of course, starts out with the big hit Man Eater, which is another one of my favorite songs from them. And then there's some other songs like Art of Broken Heartbreak, One on One. Then you have Italian Girls. Then you have Family Man, which, you know, I see Family Man and I have PTSD. I'm looking at you, Fleetwood Mac. Anyhow, besides that, yeah, it was definitely nice to check out some Hall & Oates in terms of their studio albums. Definitely open for some more, actually. I got this at a record store as well, and there's actually is a volume 2 where they actually do have other albums from them. I think some more albums, because I will say there's actually you have the self-titled, you have Bigger Than Both of Us, then Beauty on the Back Street, and I think it pretty much skips a ton of albums, goes right into Private Eyes, and I believe if you get the second volume, it actually will include the ones they skipped on this. So there's that, but still, regardless, still nice to check out more Hall & Oates. Definitely a nice duo. It is a shame they are probably never going to come back together. And now we have Don Henley with his solo album, Building the Perfect Beast. I'll be honest, I really just got this solely because I wanted The Boys of Summer on CD, because that's a terrific song from him. I've always loved Boys of Summer. Just this great, chill, very cool keyboard melody, and his vocals were really good. The rest of the album's very solid. Again, very good, but again, nothing was really on par with Boys of Summer, really. You Can't Make Love is pretty solid. You're Not Drinking Enough. All She Wants Is to Dance. And yeah, Driving with Your Eyes Closed was okay. Yeah, I've always dug Don Henley, but yeah, so far his solo stuff is not bad, but again, his hits, they're definitely the best songs, in my opinion. I really got nothing else to say, but, you know, it's okay. It's pretty good. And now we have another 5-in-1 box set here. So now we have Jethro Tull. So yeah, now we have more Jethro Tull in the collection. You know, before I only had like the big albums like Aqualung, Thick as a Brick. I even have Passion Play, and I do have one of their, I'm blanking on the name. It's one of their early albums when they're Stand Up, I believe. I have that one too. And so now we have 5 more in the collection, so that's good. I know some people will be happy. Alright, so this has, we'll go in order here. So we have Songs from the Wood. Yeah, Song from the Wood. This is during a period where they were taking some progressive rock and definitely really honing in on the folk rock sound. So a lot of the songs have a more acoustic sound, not too heavy, but still has a very more laid back approach. And I think it works very well. I really dug this period. I will say, I think this is probably my favorite period of the band, based on what I've heard so far. Of course, you have songs for the title track, Jack in the Green, Hunting Girl, Velvet Green, Fire at Midnight. Yeah, really good stuff. Really dug this one a lot. Then you have Heavy Horses. You know, pretty cool. See Acres Wild, No Lullaby, Moth, Journeyman, title track. Very solid one too. And then probably my favorite of the whole 5 here. We have Stormwatch. Yeah, this is a really great one. Really dug pretty much every song on here. This might be my favorite Jethrol Tull album. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the general consensus of this album are, but yeah, this is really good. I really like pretty much the whole album, really. So yeah, so far this is like my favorite Jethrol Tull album, honestly. Then you have these two. You have A. Of course, this was Ian Anderson's. This was supposed to be a solo album, but the record label made him turn it into a Jethrol Tull album, and so very interesting use of synthesizers and more keyboards. Not really that progressive rock sound. Not really I think this might be my least favorite of the 5, honestly. Again, I've heard mixed opinions on this album, but definitely not one of my favorites. But I think they get to the next album. You have Broadsword and the Beast. Man, two albums I've talked about recently that have Beast in the title. Yeah, this is definitely an improvement of A, I must say. A lot more songs that are a bit more memorable to me. I think the more 80s synthesizers work much better here than on A. Yeah, some songs like Beastie, Flying Colors, Broadsword, pretty much the whole second side. You have Pussy Willow. I know it's not what it's supposed to mean, but still, it's funny. But yeah, this is pretty good. Overall, yeah, I was pretty impressed with these Jethrol Tull albums, because again, I've dug Jethrol Tull, but I wouldn't say they're definitely not like a go-to band. I gotta be in the right mood for them. But you know, when I'm in that mood, and depending on the vibe of the album, I do have a good time. So yeah, I definitely am still open to checking out more Jethrol Tull in the future. Again, if you're a big Jethrol Tull fan, let me know some other albums to check out, but very happy with this set. And we have more Elton John now. We have Blue Moves. This came out in 76, I believe. And this is kind of supposed to be similar to like Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. It's kind of like another double album here. And I will say it's definitely not as memorable as Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, of course. But you know, it's Elton John. There's still going to be some good songs here and there. Songs like Tonight is pretty solid. You have Chameleon, Crazy Water. It does have a big hit on here. Sorry seems to be the hardest word. That's a great ballad. Out of the Blue, not the ELO album, you know. See, Idol's pretty good. Yeah, again, it's pretty solid, but again, it's definitely, you can definitely hear he's starting to he's starting to plateau maybe a little bit. Of course he had his classic run, but by this point he was starting to lose steam a bit. But there's still some good songs here, so it's definitely it's not a bad album by no stretch, but just definitely not his top tier. Definitely not an S tier album. I'd say maybe B tier, B or low A at most, at least. But still enjoy this one. Not bad here. And now we have another Elton John album. This is his more 80s album, 83, I believe. It's called Too Low for Zero. Alright, this was kind of like somewhat of a comeback in a sense. Yeah, because you know, he had a weird period during the late 70s and maybe the very early 80s. But now we have him back with most of his original band, and you have Bernie Taupin here as well. Of course, this had the big hit, I'm Still Standing here, which is a great song. Then you have the other big hit, I guess that's why they call it The Blues, another fantastic song. You have Stevie Wonder doing some harmonica on that track. But yeah, this was a pretty good album, pretty strong. You have Too Low for Zero, the title track. You have Crystal, Kiss the Bride. You have Whipping Boy. I really dug Whipping Boy. Yeah, for an 80s album, an 80s Elton John album, yeah, this is really strong. So far, I have maybe one or two more of his 80s period, and this is by far the best one. A lot more memorable tracks, and his vocals were still pretty good. Still has a bit of a youthfulness to it, Of course, as the 80s progressed and you get to the 90s, his voice would really drastically change. But still, I think this is a very strong album. Very good. And now we have some Journey. This one is called Arrival, the first album without Steve Perry. Of course, you have Steve Agari or Steve Ageri. I don't know how you pronounce his last name. I guess I'll say Ageri because I think I've heard more people say Ageri than Agari. So yeah, of course I saw this at a record store and I was like, yeah, because again, I'm a huge Steve Perry fan. But then again, I do like Arnel Pineda too. So I thought it was time to give good old Steve a chance. Give him a fair shake. And you know what? I'll be honest. I was pretty impressed. Like, he really impressed me. Again, he's if we're gonna rank between Steve Perry, Steve A, and Arnel, he definitely would be third place, but that doesn't take away. I think he's still a really good vocalist, and I think he really fit well with the band. Some really great songs here. 15 songs. It's another long album, but still some really good memorable tracks like Higher Place, All the Way, Signs of Life. That's probably my favorite song on here, I think. Loved by You, Living to Do. A lot of good ballads, of course. That's Journey for you at this point. Lifetime of Dreams, Kiss Me Softly. Yeah, still has it's a different singer, but still has that Journey sound. So yeah, I was very impressed. Definitely am gonna see if I can find the other album he was on. I think it was called Generations. Definitely more open to giving him more listens. So yeah, Arrival. Not sure what this would rank, but definitely get the thumbs up. And now we have yet another Kiss album. We have Love Gun. Alright, so definitely like I said, we're definitely building that Kiss collection. Very quickly than I thought, honestly. Didn't expect to get this much Kiss in these recent months. But yeah, another really strong album. Another album I quite dig. I Stole Your Love. Then you have you have Christine 16, which is kind of questionable. I'm hoping it's supposed to be a parody on groupies and some rock stars, i.e. like Jimmy Page. But I don't know. This is kind of where you kind of get like vibe, especially coming from Gene Simmons. Yeah, Gene's voice does not help, and I dig Gene Simmons, so there's that. Got Love for Sale's okay. Shock Me, the title track's pretty good. Almost Human. Then She Kissed Me is a cover, I believe, an interesting cover. Pretty solid. Yeah, it's a pretty good album. Again, I've always dug Kiss. They have a pretty cool sound, in my opinion. I know people don't like them at all, but I do dig it. But I think this is a good album. I'd say this is a good one to check out. And now we have Sir Paul McCartney. We have Give My Regards to Broad Street, of course, the soundtrack to the film of the same name. This will be Paul's big return to the big screen, and I haven't watched the movie, but based on reviews, I don't have any drive to. So, of course, really the big standout song is No More Lonely Nights, which that is a terrific song. We have David Gilmour providing guitar on that track, which is pretty cool. But then the rest of this album, it's just songs from the movie and a lot of covers of Paul's other work of both solo and Beatles. And it is what it is. Yeah, but yeah, No More Lonely Nights. That's pretty much the only reason why you want this one. You want this CD. And not all of them are bad. Not all the covers are bad. I'm not saying they're terrible, but why would you ever want to listen to these? Honestly. Yeah. Then yeah, of course you have. I was gonna say, you have Eleanor Rigby, which has that very long, drawn-out instrumental piece. Again, it might work in the movie, but if you're not gonna listen to it on its own, like, come on. But yeah, I really got nothing else to say. other than it's a soundtrack to a movie that's probably not that good. But yeah, let's just move on. And now we have this album usually has a lot of love. Many people really talk this album a lot. We have the New York Dolls with their self-titled debut. Of course, they were pretty notable, pretty influential in in that early 70s kind of more punk rock, glam rock sort of area in New York. And of course their stage presence, as you can see on their album cover, on the album cover here, very daring for the time, especially in like 70s New York, where stuff like this was pretty looked down upon. But they stuck to their guns, and they were able to record this album. And again, like I said, this album usually has a lot of praise. It has a big cult following, so I really want to check it out. And overall, yeah, I can definitely see why. Just a good rock album, just nothing crazy, nothing too weird. It's just a good, all-around, really strong rock album with some glam and punk elements in it. Good raw vibe. Definitely sounds like a band like going against the norm. Like, yeah, this is us. Either take us in or just fuck off, basically. So I do dig that sort of vibe. And I will say they do look pretty good on the cover, I must say. But that aside, yeah, top to bottom, very good, very strong album. Definitely worth a listen, I must say, if you're curious. But yeah, very good stuff. Alright, so let's keep the Queen stuff going still. Yep, we have a Queen live album. We have Live at the Bowl. Of course, this was recorded in 1982. Actually, specifically June 5th, 1982, because it says so on the back. And yeah, by this point, they were touring the game. Not the game. Hot Space at the time. And maybe Flash Gordon as well, because they literally start the show with 2 tracks from the Flash Gordon soundtrack. You have Flash and The Hero. But the stuff from Hot Space, you have Action This Day, Staying Power, and Back Chat. Which I will say, I do prefer these live versions of those songs. Like, I have a soft spot for Hot Space, but I do think some of the songs they did live actually do sound a lot better. It definitely has more of that rock sound from Queen that a lot of us love a lot. That's just my opinion. But yeah, overall, it's a really good performance. Of course, by this point, they were pretty much still in their prime. Again, Freddie, again, vocals were top notch. Brian, great guitar, and they have great bass and drums from Roger and John, of course. Really not much else to say, but again, if you love Queen and you love their sound, their live sound, yeah, definitely a must listen, definitely a must own. Just really great stuff. And now we have another Queen live album. We have Live Magic. Now this is interesting because it's not really highlighting one specific show. It's kind of like a compilation of various live stuff they were doing during the Magic tour. Of course, the last tour with Freddie Mercury before they would kind of go into hiding, shall we say. Especially Freddie was about to be diagnosed with AIDS not long after this. And this is a Japanese copy, by the way, because you can tell, because for one, the spine's in Japanese, and also if you open up the booklet, it comes with this like Japanese thing you see in a lot of Japanese CDs. So there's that. Anyway, onto the actual music. I will say though, I think of all the Queen live albums I've heard, this is by far my least favorite. For one big fault with this, and that is some of the songs they edit some of them to shrink them. One of the biggest offenders is Bohemian Rhapsody, where it starts with the usual, but usually when they do Bohemian Rhapsody live, when you get the operatic section, they just do a playback of the operatic section before going back into the hard rock. With this, it skips the operatic section entirely. say what you will about them using the playback for that song, but still, it's like something's missing. So that's like the biggest offender, but that's not the only occurrence. You know, We Will Rock You, they changed it so it's only like one verse before going to the guitar solo, and even We Are the Champions, they edited it for some reason. So I guess they did it so it can fit on one disc, but still, it's like, why? Just make it a double disc, so you didn't have to edit them. So yeah, unless you're a completist, I don't really recommend this. I guess the only thing that's worth noting with this is that, of course, it contains some of the live stuff from the Nebworth Park performance, which is the very last show of the tour, and the last show the band would do it. They would perform with Freddie before, of course, they would stop touring after this. So in terms of that, it has that significance to it, but still, the edited songs kind of really kill this for me. So yeah. And now we have another more modern album. We have Sia. Of course, this came out in 2014, and of course, this had the massive single Chandelier. You know, I remember when that was out. But you know, might as well give Sia a chance. Again, I'm still not trying to incorporate more modern music, more pop music here, and not bad. Again, the Chandelier, I was never really that crazy for Chandelier. It's fine, it's okay, don't hate it. Big Girls Cry, that was pretty good. I like that one. Let's see, Eye of the Needle, Fair Game's okay. Let's see, what else did I enjoy? Elastic Harp, I think I liked a lot. Overall, it's not bad. Again, not my favorite sound. I mean, 2014 had this very particular sound, which, you know, again, I probably still need to give more listens to that era again. But in terms of this, it's again, I don't hate it. She does have a nice voice. I do like her voice a lot. But the music itself is kind of the only thing that's holding me back. Again, not terrible, but not really my thing. But, you know, it's okay. Again, don't have much else to say, but it's fine. Now here's something interesting. We have Boz Scaggs. I don't know if I said that right, but this is his album Silk Degrees. So I had no idea who Boz Scaggs is, but for some reason I see this album get brought up from time to time, usually on a lot of lists. And yeah, so I decided to check him out, and you know, hey, not bad. I liked it. I kind of dug it. It has a very soul vibe to it, like very soulful, kind of like Blue Eyed Soul in it to an extent. Let's see what else to note. Yeah, it just has a cool atmosphere. Of course, you also have a lot of the members from Toto on here. You have, you know, David Paik. Don't know how you say his last name. Then you have Jeff Picario, of course, on drums. David Hungate on bass. I'm surprised Steve Lukather's not on here. That would kind of seal the deal. But besides that, yeah, you know, just a good kind of chill, kind of Blue Eyed Soul, poppy sort of sound. Yeah. What can I say? Georgia, Lowdown, It's Over, Love Me Tomorrow. Yeah, just a couple of highlights here. Yeah, not much else to say really. I don't really see it as the greatest album I've heard in my life, but you know, not bad, pretty good, pretty solid overall. Yeah, I dug that one. Now we are going back to something heavy. We got Scorpions yet again with Love Drive. Of course, has this very, very strange cover. Why bubblegum? But only 8 songs. But yeah, of course, I really dig the Scorpions a lot. Very great hard rock, heavy metal band. And yeah, this is a really good one. Of course, they actually briefly reunited with Michael Schenker, who was on a very early member. Yeah, and of course the guitar playing is really good. Again, some good heavy songs like Love You Sunday Morning. There's a song called Another Piece of Meat, which is something. Yeah, the title track, can't get enough. Yeah, really great, really strong album again. Again, Scorpions haven't steered me wrong quite yet, but then again, I haven't heard any of the late period stuff yet, so there's that. But based on what I've heard and what I have, definitely a nice addition to the collection. So yeah, another good highlight in this haul. And now we have something interesting. We have Sonny and Cher. And this is a kind of a compilation which includes 3 albums from them. Of course, you have the debut, Look at Us. Then you have the second album, The Wondrous World of Sonny and Cher. And then you have the third album, In Case You're in Love. And there's a bonus disc which has a lot of like bonus songs, like B-sides and other songs they released around that time that didn't make the albums. So good collection if you're interested on getting Sonny and Cher. So the reason why I got this is because, of course, we do an album exchange with me, Adam, Jason, and Nick. And I know Nick recommended us listen to the third album. And this is kind of a good, quick way to get some more Sonny and Cher. I'll save my opinion on this album, but I'll mention my opinions on the first 2 albums. First album, of course, has the big hit, I Got You Babe, which is a great song. The rest of the album is kind of hit or miss. I will say it's definitely my least favorite of the 3 included here. Mainly because, again, Cher, by this point, really great voice. I really do like her very unique sound. Sonny, very hit or miss. Sometimes he sounds okay, but when he's by himself, yeah, it gets grating after a while. And I know, you know the story. Sonny didn't want to sing originally, but Cher was just so shy and introverted and didn't want to go out there alone, so she really begged Sonny to sing with her, which is kind of sweet, I must say. But yeah, I definitely get the Sonny, not that great of a singer. But when they do sing together, they do complement each other shockingly well. But yeah, when Sonny's by himself, it doesn't work as well. But he's okay. He's not the worst singer I've heard, but still. Then you have The Wondrous World of Sonny and Cher, big improvement. Not as much Sonny singing on his own, but still some really great, catchy songs, really good, memorable tunes. Songs like Summertime, Bring It On Home, What Now, My Love. Yeah, there are some other songs, but those are like a couple, just like few. Actually, I could be misremembering some songs actually. So take what I just said with a grain of salt there. But yeah, again, I'm going to say my opinion on the third album when we do that album exchange. But yeah, I definitely am digging Sonny and Cher, and really going through these 3 really gives me a better appreciation for Cher as a vocalist. I'm actually pretty open now to checking out some of her solo stuff. So if you're a big Cher fan, let me know some albums to check out. I know she has like a arena rock act in the 80s, so maybe I'll check that stuff out. And now, sticking the Cher theme, we have All Man and Woman. So if you have no idea about this album, to give you a quick backstory, of course Sonny and Cher divorced in like the mid-70s, and Cher decides to marry Gregg Allman from the Allman Brothers Band. Yeah, that was a thing. The marriage did not last long, and during that time they made this album, and the album cover speaks for itself. I mean, you have Gregg trying to look sexy, but he just looks stupid, and having Cher there just kind of makes this even more like, what? So before I talk about the album itself, first off, I was shocked I was able to find this on CD, and because I don't think it's ever been officially released on a CD, at least to my knowledge. Yeah, so I think this is a bootleg, honestly. Like, that's kind of when bootlegs come in clutch sometimes. So now I have this album on CD, Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, hey, if you've seen my collection, you know I sometimes buy some really very questionable things. Album itself, it's fine. I mean, it doesn't sound terrible, but of course Greg and Sher really don't really sound that well together. Because again, you have Greg, this big southern rock, this southern soul bluesy vocalist, and you have just Sher, which is this very Sher voice. Yeah, it doesn't work. You know, it's not all terrible. There's some songs. There was like 2 songs I would say I kind of liked. I do like the first song, "Move Me." I think that's a nice. I like the music of that one. The music's very catchy. And then probably by far the best song on here is "Shadow Dream Song," which is actually written by Jackson Browne. And that song you just have Greg singing. Like, I don't think Sher is on that song at all, unless maybe I'm wrong, maybe a little bit of backing vocals, but it's basically Greg. And of course Greg has a great voice, and he definitely has a great song. Other than that, the rest of the album, yeah, nothing really worth noting. It's very forgettable for the most part, and again, vocals very hit or miss. But as curiosity and as an oddity, I mean, if you're curious, go ahead and let's find it. I know it's not on streaming platforms, I don't think, so you might have to listen to this on YouTube, but yeah, there's that. So interesting footnote in music history. Okay, so now we have something from the early 2000s. We have "The Beautiful Let Down" by the band Switchfoot. So again, this is another album from the album exchange that we're doing. This is Jason's pick, and again, I'm not going to speak much here because again, I'm going to save my thoughts for the album exchange pretty soon, sometime this month, hopefully. But yeah. Again, I can't say much on it, but I do own it. I will admit, I don't have Adam's pick yet. I will say it. It was supposed to be Roger Daltrey's first solo album. That's still coming, but it probably won't come until sometime in November. So I'll keep an eye out for that. But hopefully it comes before we do that album exchange. But yeah, there we go. So that's Jason's pick. Okay, folks, this was a big anticipation from me. We have Maria Takeyoshi yet again with her new album, Precious Days. This is her first album in 10 years. Of course, the last album was called Trad. That was in 2014, and now we're in 2024, and finally, I live to see another album. So, yeah. So, of course, when I heard she was going to release the album, of course I was excited because I'm a big fan of her. And yeah, and of course, there was a little bit of promotion on. She does have a YouTube channel, by the way. And of course, there are promotions on this. And yeah, quick thoughts right now. Very strong album. I still wouldn't say this is like top tier. It's not quite there, but there's still some really nice songs here. As pretty much on all her albums, even the albums I'm not as crazy with, there's still some songs I like on all of the albums. So what's interesting about this album, it is a studio album, but it does, a lot of the songs are actually taken from songs she was writing in between. So a lot of these songs were from TV shows and movies she was a part of, and so they kind of put them all here. But there's some songs that aren't part of movies or TV shows, but I wouldn't know because of course a lot of these are from Japanese shows, so I wouldn't know which one's which. But I'd say the first 6 songs really starts out the album really well. You have, again, I can't read all the titles because some of them are Japanese and just a few of them are in English, but starts off with Brighten Up Your Day, a great kind of upbeat, very positive sounding song to get you in a good mood. Tracks 2 and 3 are really good. Track 4 was interesting. It actually was, I think it was a hit for her in Japan. You have a Good Time Here, which funny enough was part of a Pokemon show on Netflix, which was kind of interesting. Didn't expect that, but still very cool. Smiling Days was nice. Probably my favorite song might be the 6th song, which is called Watching Over You, which is a duet, which with some other singer, which I'm not familiar with, but I think they sound really nice. And then from that point on, the songs kind of range from very strong to being okay. But as we keep going, again, songs like Days of Love is pretty nice. The last song, there's 18 songs, by the way. I don't know if I said that already. There's 18 songs, so it's a long album. But the album does end on a nice note with May Each Day, which has a very, very kind of, I don't know, has a nice, I want to say melancholy, but it has this kind of very somber tone to it, which I really dug. It's definitely a song that sounds like Karen Carpenter would sing, like at the very end of her life. Kind of has that sort of sound to it, which I think does end the album on a really nice note. Like, if this is going to be her last album, because she's getting close to 70 at this point. If this is going to be her last album, I think this is a very strong album to go out with. So we'll see. Only time will tell if she releases more, but as of now, this is a strong one in my books. And now we have another band called 10 Years After, and this is the album A Space in Time. So yeah, 10 Years After, another band that gets brought up every once in a while. Again, not like a big name act, but they have they have a kind of a big following. They were pretty known for being a hard rock band, but this album was interesting in their discography because if you need a comparison, this is kind of like their Led Zeppelin 3, where they still have some hard rock elements, but they definitely infuse a lot more folk into this. Overall, yeah, I like this one. I like this one. Again, this probably needs more listens, but based on when I first heard this album, I definitely dug the vibe. Some good singing. Singing was pretty solid. Some good guitar playing as well. But yeah, it's just a mixture of hard rock and folk. And it's a pretty good blend. Again, I don't have much else to add to this. But yeah, if you know this band more, let me know if there's any other albums to check out. But yeah, pretty nice one. Pretty cool. It's worth listening if you're into if you like Led Zeppelin 3, then maybe this is up your alley. But yeah, I dug it. Now we got some Thin Lizzy yet again with Renegade. This is their second to last album, I think. This came out in '81, I think. And yeah, another good, strong album. Probably my least favorite album I've heard from them as of now. Again, I have not heard their early album, their first couple albums yet, so I can't compare. But still, it still has that Thin Lizzy heavy sound, which of course I like their sound a lot. So yeah, songs like Angel of Death, the title track, Hollywood, Down on Your Luck, It's Getting Dangerous. Yeah, it's just a really good album. It's just a very strong album. Again, not one of my top tier favorite Thin Lizzy albums, but still very good, very strong. Yeah, dug it a lot. And now we have Twisted Sister with Stay Hungry. Alright, so of course this is probably their most famous album. It has their two biggest songs, which is We're Not Gonna Take It and I Wanna Rock, which has those pretty memorable music videos. And of course they're kind of known in that sort of hair metal, glam rock sort of sound. Of course, very glam rock, especially with all the makeup they would do. Of course you have Dee Snider there on the cover. It's a very fun album. I'm just gonna be straight up. It's a fun album. I can see people hating Twisted Sister solely because they look kind of goofy. But yeah, they're kind of a band I can see they don't really take themselves that seriously. But it's fun. It's just a fun time. Stay Hungry, Burn in Hell, Horror Teria, The Price, Don't Let Me Down. Yeah, it's cool, goofy, but yeah, I kind of dug it. Maybe it's a guilty pleasure. I'm not sure. Who knows? I definitely might check out more Twisted Sister because I heard their first couple albums were actually really good too. So yeah, very, 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 very positive on this one. And now we're back talking about more Weather Report. And man, do I hate when these CD companies put the hype sticker right on the jewel case. and I was too lazy to remove it. But that gripe aside, yep, Weather Report, probably my favorite jazz fusion band I've ever heard, and yeah, this is another really terrific one. Again, all the songs are instrumental, which, you know, with jazz fusion, that's to be expected, so I don't have an issue with that. Only 6 songs here, but yeah, again, really great, lots of great grooves, great keyboards, bass, drums, horns, of course, you know, by Wayne Shorter, of course. And yeah, it's another really top-notch album here. Again, if you like jazz fusion, I mean, Weather Report definitely need to be on your list of bands to check out, and this is definitely another one to check out. Yeah, again, not much else to say, but again, it's just very, very cool. Really like really dig their sound. I got a good chunk of the catalog, honestly, but yeah, we'll see if we can keep it going. So we're nearly there. We just have 2 albums to talk about, and they're both soundtracks. So let's quickly talk about those real quick. First up, we have the soundtrack to the Disney film Pocahontas. So, you know, say what you will about the movie, you know, has a very divisive reputation, you know, for obvious reasons. But I will say, regardless of what you think of the movie, I definitely think the soundtrack is definitely by far the best part of the movie, and really it really comes down to because it has Colors of the Wind, plural. Make sure you say that right. And yeah, that's like a top 10 Disney song, maybe a top 5. That's like a top 5 Disney song, honestly. Love that song. The vocals by Judy Kahn, absolutely spectacular, and I just love the overall orchestration, the arrangement, and yeah, just a very nice sound. So that alone is why I got this, honestly. But you know, the rest of the soundtrack's pretty solid too. So of course you have a lot of instrumentals against the score basically, but the songs themselves were pretty okay, or pretty nice. But yeah, not much else to say, not much to add, but hey, another Disney film in the collection, so hey. And the last CD in this haul, we got the soundtrack to the movie Spirited Away. So we have, again, I cannot believe I saw this at a record store, and I'm like, yoink. Because of course, Spirited Away, probably one of the quintessential Studio Ghibli films. You know, this was a massive hit. This was a pretty monumental moment for not just Japanese anime, but animation as a whole. Because again, especially nowadays, it really seems like Hollywood really is trying to really shit talking on animation, which I'm like, man, go fuck off, those higher ups. But regardless, like, this is definitely one that's definitely like, I mean, if you know the movie, you probably already know the soundtrack. I mean, this whole CD is basically the score. I think is really the second to last songs. It's kind of the only songs with actual vocals. But if you know the movie, you should know the score by this point. Very nice, you know, very orchestral. Has a big orchestra, a lot of strings, horns, of course. But yeah, it just fits the mood of the movie, and yeah, just definitely one that's kind of nice to have in the collection, I must say. But yeah, not gonna go too in depth in the movie because I'm not a movie channel, but definitely worth checking out if you're that curious. Definitely out there in terms of concepts, but that's Japan for you. But yeah, there you go. That is the last CD for this particular CD haul. And there you have it. That is every CD I bought throughout the month of October. Overall, really great stuff here. I think this is a pretty strong haul, and a lot of good a lot of good discoveries in this particular haul. So, of course, if you enjoyed this, please give this video a like, subscribe if you are new, and as always, in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on any of the CDs and albums I talked about in this video. Let me know which ones are your favorites and other recommendations you want me to check out. And that's about it. So we'll see what November brings. I will say this is around the time where hopefully I could slow down a bit, because of course the holidays are coming up, and it's probably a good time to save money. But other than that, again, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care and goodbye for now.